Now, the incredible story you're about to hear by equal measures is heartbreaking and infuriating, and the embodiment of everything that is wrong with Britain's broken asylum system. In March 2022, Afghan asylum seeker Lawangin Abdulrahimzai murdered Tom Roberts, 21, an aspiring Marine, after plunging a knife twice into his chest over a squabble over an e-scooter in Bournemouth. Now, that's bad enough. But Abdulrahimzai, who was jailed last year for 29 years, was a wanted killer who should never even have been in Britain in the first place. He entered the UK illegally on Boxing Day 2019, having stowed away in a vehicle. He was 19, but he lied to Border Force that he was 40, and he also lied he was fleeing the Taliban. No checks were ever carried out. His fingerprints were taken, yet astonishingly, they were not shared with Interpol until after Roberts' death. Now, if that had happened, it would have revealed that Abdulrahimzai was a convicted drug dealer who had also murdered 2 other asylum seekers in Serbia in 2018. He mowed them down with an AK-47. Now, checks would have proved a previous claim for asylum in Norway had also been rejected. At Abdulrahimzai's trial in 2022, it emerged his foster carer who has reported him to social services for carrying knives. She hid all the knives in the house. He was also expelled from a school in Bournemouth for carrying a knife inside the school. It emerged the Home Office knew he was a terror threat. He'd been flagged to prevent in 2021, a full year before he killed Tom. Now, Roberts' family, his mum Dolores Wallace Roberts and stepdad Peter Wallace, had previously accused Border Force and Home Office of systemic failures. They pinned their hopes on a full inquiry. But yesterday, Rachel Griffin, the senior coroner for Dorset, ruled that there was no need for a full inquest into the circumstances surrounding Roberts' tragic and untimely death. Ms Griffin acknowledged there were individual errors, but said they do not amount to a systemic failure. Roberts' mother said this: "The Home Office don't want to engage with us. Everything is wrong in this country and it will continue to happen again." Peter Wallace, Roberts' heartbroken stepfather, said this: "There were so many warning signs that he should not have been in this country here, and yet the Home Office did nothing at all about it." So the simple question tonight is this: is it time somebody in the Home Office was held accountable for the tragic loss of Tom Roberts? OK, let's get the thoughts now of my panel. And I'm joined by the Daily Telegraph superstar columnist Alison Pearson, Lord Bailey, the Conservative peer, and also by Matthew Laza, former Labour advisor. Welcome back to the show. I found that incredibly difficult to read out. I read that 5 or 6 times a day just to try and stop myself weeping. In fact, even now, it's like incredibly difficult to think about stories like that. These people should never have been in Britain. He lied and cheated his way into Britain. He was multiple times picked up by the authorities. They simply failed to do their jobs. And now his mother and his stepfather can't even get a full inquiry. Panel, Alison, let's start with you. This is everything that's wrong with our asylum system. What on earth should happen?
It's absolutely rotten, Martin, isn't it? I mean, as you say, you cannot believe it. There were so many opportunities to pick him up, but each time he's given the benefit of the doubt. It's a fact that thousands of asylum seekers have come to the UK and have claimed to be a child because it gives them an easier ride. And then, then years later, as with this guy, he was 19. He was put into a secondary school in Bournemouth. This was a guy who would kill 2 people with a Kalashnikov. It's surreal. It's like some mad Sacha Baron Cohen comedy, except it's ended in the tragedy of the death of this wonderful young man, Tom Roberts. Another example, he went to a dentist, this scumbag, and the dentist said, "This isn't a child." And they informed the authorities, and the authorities said, "Oh, yes, well, we'll have a look into that, but first we'll do a mental health assessment." This is the country we live in, and it's absolutely terrible. And we've also had the Abdulazidi case in January, another Afghan asylum seeker who threw acid at a woman and a child. 1 in 5, Martin, 1 in 5 of the people who come across on the small boats come from Afghanistan. That country is treating women and girls like livestock, and we are letting those people into our country. Germany is thinking of banning anybody coming into Germany from Afghanistan and Iraq, and I think we should do that because these people do not abide by civilisational values that we share here.
Lord Bailey, the final heartbreak in this story is the mother, Dolores, and father, Peter, just pinning their hopes on a full inquiry to try and make sense of this, and more to the point, to try and make sure something like this can never, ever happen again. That's been denied to them, the reasons I went through in the monologue there. But it doesn't feel right, does it? It doesn't feel right. There can be so many mistakes, so many opportunities missed. The fingerprints that were never given to Interpol would have proven this guy was wanted for murder on the continent. How on earth can somebody get fingerprinted and that not get passed on? Do you think it is time, in this case, or indeed any like this, for proper, full, transparent inquiries and for somebody to be held accountable? Grenfell, they're saying we need somebody, an individual, to be held responsible for that killing, for manslaughter. Is it time to do the same with the Home Office?
I believe that the Home Office should have welcomed an inquiry because they need to know why this happened. And the idea that there wasn't a systematic breakdown is ridiculous. There was an umpteen different times that a small intervention could have saved the life of this very fantastic man, Tom Roberts. He wanted to become a Marine. That's a really big thing. He wanted to serve this country, but yet he's been murdered. And I'll tell you why this is important. It's important about trust. If we let these things continue to happen, the British public will no longer trust foreigners. People come to the country. Not all foreigners who come in, very far from it, are criminals. But that's why you have to get on top of things like this. I sat in a debate in the House of Lords and heard people talking about how do we define if a person is a child or an adult when they come across and they claim asylum. And that whole debate erred on the side of caution. So we have to basically take people at their word. That's how I read that event. I think now the Home Office need to readjust and say, are we protecting the British public? That is our first duty, our major duty. And the current system, as this tragic case points to, would suggest that the safety of the British public is not uppermost in Home Office mind.
Matthew, it feels time and time again that when these instances happen, it's like, oh, well, they said they were 14 and we couldn't give an intrusive test, genetic or dental, because of the human rights of the...
I mean, the dental check isn't actually that intrusive because this guy was, you know, sprung by, as it were, by his dentist, just doing a standard checkup, which all of us go for, and I don't think any of us finds unnecessarily intrusive. I have a friend who actually works with a social worker, senior social worker in a major city, who works with young asylum seekers, and one of the things she really worries about is the fact that actually, because of the issue, because the tests aren't done, the older asylum seekers are in there, and that they're preying and causing problems for the younger ones, the genuine kids. Because of course, one of the tragedies here is the two people he killed in Serbia were asylum seekers. They weren't local Serbians. They were asylum seekers that he murdered. So I mean, you know, we have to think about the duty of care to those who we are giving refuge to, as well, obviously, a duty of care to all our own citizens. So it just shows how broken the Home Office is, and how, if anybody on the left thinks that, you know, we shouldn't be distinguishing between kids and a guy who was a 19-year-old double murderer who we put in a school in Dorset, I mean, it's just extraordinary. And I mean, I can see why legally the judge was saying, because interpreting the ECHR, they thought there wasn't a cause for an inquiry. I think the government needs to look at an inquiry into this.
We should have our own inquiry.
The government should do it,
and what's interesting, they say they couldn't decide if he was a child or not, but how did the dentist know?
That's the way you do it. But they won't let people have dental tests.
They won't specifically send them to a dentist in case it's intrusive to their human rights.
I'm sorry, they need to understand, they need to protect everybody else's human rights. The first and major job of any government is to protect its citizens. This is putting people at risk, and it's putting asylum seekers at risk as well, because people will start to reject them if we think they're dangerous.
So that brings me to the big question, Alison Pearson. Is the Home Office fit for purpose?
Well, certainly not. And something that did happen was they lost one case with one of these people claiming to be a child. And after that, Martin, caseworkers were told to give all the applicants the benefit of the doubt. All right? So it's gone way too far the other way. And as Sean has said, the first consideration should be, will this be safe for the British people who live here? It's not, will this be OK for this guy? And absolutely. And I think that the senior coroner, Rachel Griffin, who you quoted, it's just rubbish that she says that there were individual errors, but it doesn't amount to a systemic failure. It is a complete systemic failure. I mean he was referred to the PREVENT programme, which is for terrorism. There were about 10 things you could check off. And the idea that there's not going to be a proper inquest or an inquiry it's an absolute disgrace. And I feel so sorry for Tom Roberts' parents.
And I've got to say, it goes to your point about accountability. Until somebody is held accountable, these things will continue to happen. The Home Office is a big, amorphous organisation. It can take an absolute battering, but so it will prevent change. Somebody in a very senior position needs to grip this problem and be held responsible, and that's the first step in making these things go.
I mean, I was disappointed that the new government didn't abolish the Home Office. We need a department for immigration, migration. I'm partly Australian. Australia has it, New Zealand has it, and it works because you've got a clear focus. The Home Office's days are numbered. It's now 20 years since John Weasley wasn't fit for purpose.
One final statistic. France, asylum seekers, 27% grant rate, OK?
Yes.
UK grant rate, 57%. We approve double the number of people coming in, and I think there is bias in the Home Office towards letting these people in, and they are not putting the safety of the British people at the centre of their operations.
Do you agree with that?
100%. We need, I agree with Matthew, actually, we need to break the Home Office up. We need to have a specific department about immigration, etc., because it will give them a new focus. They won't have to carry the baggage that has been left behind by the Home Office, and you may get, it's the best chance of getting a change in culture. This government should grasp that nettle, which, quite frankly, politically wouldn't be risky at all to suggest we're going to do something different.
And what hope can we offer to Tom's parents in this situation? You've got Dolores and Peter who just feel the system has completely and utterly betrayed them and let them down. They've played the rules. They've patiently waited for an outcome of an investigation, an inquiry. That's been cruelly snatched away. What hope do they have?
I wish I could say we could offer them some hope. The only hope they have is that someone in our political firmament, in the government, takes initiative and leads on this. I feel so bad for them. The loss of their son, their blue-eyed boy, who they were living for, snatched away from them in circumstances that were preventable. The government has to step up.
Perhaps we can try and do something about that.
Yes.
Let's have a chat afterwards. I think we've got to. It's got to start on programmes like this, because these sort of stories simply cannot go on.
No.
Thank you very much. Now,